They swore it couldn't be done. They built their world on the certainty of your failure. But now, your very existence has shattered their reality, because no one has ever been so dangerous like you. They used to laugh, not just in front of you, but behind your back, where they thought you couldn't hear. They whispered your name like it was a curse, spat their doubts at your feet like filth, and convinced themselves that you would fade into nothing. They didn't just mock you, they needed you to fail, because your success, your rise, it was never just a win for you, it was a death sentence for everything they believed in. You weren't supposed to make it. You weren't supposed to break free. You weren't supposed to expose the lies they built their lives around. But now, every breath you take suffocates them. Every step you climb crushes their excuses. Every victory you claim is a reminder of the war they already lost. You were the nightmare they never saw coming, the storm they never prepared for, the reckoning they prayed would never arrive. And yet, here you are, unstoppable, unshaken, untouchable. This is the breakdown of how you became the force they now fear. If you feel this message, hit like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments. Every action pushes this message further, signals to the algorithm that more chosen ones need to hear this, need to rise, need to know that their power is real. This is not just a message, it's a movement, and the world will never be the same again. They used to laugh, now they don't even speak. That's the power of a chosen one. You have done the impossible, and now you haunt them. When you enter the room, the air shifts. The same people who once rolled their eyes now lower their gaze. The same mouths that mocked you are now dry, unable to form words. And the silence. The silence is their confession. They can't deny it anymore. They can't erase the truth. You are the proof that they were wrong. But this was never just about proving them wrong. No, this was about proving you were always right, that the fire inside you was real, that the limits they swore were unbreakable were nothing but illusions, that their disbelief was never a reflection of your weakness, but of their own. That's what makes you dangerous. Not just that you won, but that you never needed them to do it. You didn't beg for permission. You didn't ask for approval. You didn't lower yourself to be accepted. You rose on your own terms. And that terrifies them. Because now they have to live with the truth. They have to sit in the ruins of their doubt and watch as you take everything they said was impossible and turn it into reality. They used to believe they had power over you. They used to think their words, their opinions, their rejection could break you. But what they never understood was this. You were never just a dreamer. You were never just another name. You were a weapon waiting to be unleashed. And now, unleashed is exactly what you are. Number 1. The birth of a threat. They weren't ready for you. You weren't just born, you were unleashed. They built a world where people like you were meant to stay in the shadows. But you didn't just step into the light, you became the fire. They thought you were nothing, just another face in the crowd, another name that would fade with time. They saw you walking among them and dismissed you as ordinary, unaware that they were standing next to something that would one day make them tremble. They didn't fear you then, because they didn't know what you were. But deep down, something in them sensed it. That's why they tried so hard to keep you small, why they threw their words, their doubts, their rejection at you like stones, hoping one of them would break you. Because the weak always recognize a threat before it rises. But you weren't here to blend in. You weren't here to fit inside their box, to bow to their rules, to play their meaningless games of approval and validation. You weren't born to be controlled. You were born to break the mold, rewrite the script, and burn down the walls they built to keep you out. And that terrified them. They saw a storm before it even arrived. They mocked you, not because they truly believed you were a fool, but because they were desperate to convince themselves that you weren't a problem. They tried to deny your potential, tried to drown your voice in laughter, tried to bury your ambition under their mediocrity. But what they never understood was this: you weren't waiting for their approval. You were waiting for your moment. Look through history. The pattern never changes. The greatest threats always start as the most underestimated. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company before he revolutionized the tech world. Muhammad Ali was mocked before he became the greatest fighter of all time. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television before she built an empire. Elon Musk was laughed at when he spoke of Mars before the same people watched his rockets return to Earth. Every single one of them was dismissed until they became undeniable. And now, it's your turn. At this point, you might ask yourself, why do they react this way? Why does my success feel like an attack on them? The answer is simple: because your rise exposes their cowardice. They have lived their entire lives bowing to limitations, settling for comfort, convincing themselves that greatness is for someone else. They built excuses so high, they started believing they were walls that could never be climbed. And then you came along, you, with your audacity to believe you could be more, your refusal to accept the lies they swallowed so easily. And just like that, you shattered their illusion. Do you see why they resist you? Why they fight so hard to belittle you? It's not because you're wrong. It's because if you're right, if you really do make it, then they have to face the brutal truth that they wasted years living small. And that's a reality they will do anything to avoid. That's why they tried to smother you before you could grow. They thought if they hit you early enough, you would never recover. If they drowned your ambition in doubt, you'd never try. If they ridiculed your dreams, you'd start ridiculing them too. But what they didn't know, what they still don't understand, is that you weren't built like them. A chosen one isn't made in comfort. A chosen one isn't born from easy days and effortless success. A chosen one is forged in fire. And now, the fire they tried to burn you with, it only made you stronger. The storm they feared, it's here. And the ones who doubted you the most, they will be the first to fall silent. They weren't ready for you. They never could be, because people like you don't come with a warning. They arrive like an earthquake, breaking apart everything that once seemed unshakable. They feared you before they even understood why. They mocked you before they even knew what you were capable of. But now, the silence is beginning. Now, their certainty is cracking. They know it. They feel it. And soon, they will have no choice but to face the truth. That the person they once laughed at is now the one they fear the most. Number 2, their biggest fear: you didn't need them. Nothing scares the weak more than a person who refuses to bow. They don't fear your power, they fear that you built it without them. They always believed that without them you were nothing, that without their approval you would hesitate, that without their validation you would never rise. They wanted you to depend on them, to need their permission, to beg for a seat at their table, because the moment you needed them, they could control you. But you didn't. You didn't wait. You didn't ask. You didn't beg. You moved without them, built without them, became unstoppable without them. And now, that's why they hate you. Not just because you made it, but because they had no part in it. Because now, when they look at your success, they realize they are irrelevant. They used to smirk when you spoke of your dreams. Now, they choke on their own arrogance. They used to dismiss you as a nobody. Now they watch in silence, knowing you became untouchable. And nothing burns them more than knowing they played no role in your rise. This is their greatest fear, the realization that you never needed them at all. You have to understand, weak people survive by being needed. They aren't strong enough to build something on their own, so they insert themselves into the success of others. They live off validation, power, and control. The moment they see someone becoming great, they attach themselves, feeding off that energy, claiming credit where none is due. They were waiting for you to ask for their approval, for their support, for their help. They were waiting for the moment they could say, "See, they only made it because of me." But that moment never came. You left them behind. You proved they weren't necessary. And now they are scrambling. Because they don't just envy your success, they resent their own insignificance. They thought they were the gatekeepers to power, but you kicked down the door and built your own kingdom. Look at history. This pattern never changes. The ones who truly shape the world are the ones who refuse to be controlled. Nikola Tesla didn't wait for approval. He changed the world and let others catch up. Kobe Bryant didn't beg for respect. He took it with blood, sweat, and undeniable dominance. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school team, and instead of begging for a chance, he made himself so unstoppable that the world had no choice but to recognize him. Greatness is never granted. It is taken. And you took it. This is why they whisper about you, why they pretend they don't see what's happening. Because deep down, they know they should have supported you. They know they should have stood beside you. But instead, they laughed. Instead, they doubted. Instead, they tried to make you believe that you needed them. Because the only thing more terrifying than your power is the reality that they never had any to begin with. At this point, you might ask yourself, why does this bother them so much? Why do they seem more angry now than when I was struggling? Because in their world, the ones who rise owe something to the ones who doubted them. They expect you to turn around and say, "You were right. I needed you. I couldn't have done it without you." But what happens when you don't? What happens when you keep moving, keep growing, keep building, without ever looking back? That's when the hate begins. Now they talk behind closed doors. Now they tell people you got lucky. Now they make excuses for why you succeeded. They will say, "It was never really that hard." They will say, "They just happened to be in the right place at the right time." But what they will never admit is the truth. That you made it because you refused to let them stop you. They fear you now, not just because of what you've achieved, but because you proved them unnecessary. They used to think they were the giants standing in your way, but now they realize they were nothing more than shadows. This is the moment they never wanted to face. The moment when their words no longer hold weight, when their approval is no longer required, when they realize, with every ounce of regret in their soul, that the person they once dismissed has left them behind forever. And that is a pain they will never escape. Number 3. Every attack made you stronger. They thought their words were bullets. They didn't realize you were bulletproof. They came at you with fire, but all they did was forge something indestructible. They thought they were breaking you. Every insult, every doubt, every attempt to humiliate you, they expected it to shatter you like glass. They threw their words like knives, hoping you would bleed. They pushed you down, thinking you'd never stand up again. But instead of breaking, you became something they never expected. You became stronger, harder, deadlier. They thought you would fold. They thought you would retreat. They thought if they hit you hard enough, you would surrender. But what they never understood was this: you were built for war. Doubt fueled you. Insults hardened you. Betrayal turned you into a weapon. They tried to bury you in rejection, hoping you'd suffocate under the weight of their words. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't a corpse. You were a seed. Every attempt to destroy you only made your roots stronger, your fire hotter, your hunger greater. And now they have to live with what they've created. Look at the legends, the ones who reshaped the world. Every single one of them walked through fire before they became untouchable. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he created the light bulb. Did they give up? Did they break under the weight of failure? No. They took every single attack and turned it into the foundation of their empire. And so did you. Because here's what your enemies never understood. The only thing stronger than a person who has never been hurt is a person who has survived everything and kept going. The words they threw at you, the betrayal they served you, the obstacles they placed in your way, you turned them all into fuel. They tried to use your past against you, but instead, you built a future so powerful that it erased everything they thought could hold you down. And now, they are terrified. Because what do you do with someone who refuses to break? What do you do with someone who absorbs every attack and turns it into strength? They don't know. They've never seen anything like you before. They were counting on your pain to destroy you. But pain didn't destroy you. It transformed you. Every scar became a lesson. Every wound became a shield. Every time they tried to drag you down, you built another level to rise higher. Now you stand above them, watching as they struggle to understand how you survived. There's not a single force left that can break you. At this point, they've run out of weapons. They've run out of tricks. And the most painful thing for them now? They have to watch you thrive. They have to sit in silence, knowing that everything they did to try and stop you was pointless. Knowing that every ounce of energy they spent trying to destroy you only made you stronger. And that is their greatest failure. Because they thought they were playing the role of your executioner. But what they really did, they built their own irrelevance. They thought they were writing your downfall, but instead, they wrote their own obituary. Now they see it. Now they know. They should have never doubted you. They should have never attacked you. Because instead of breaking, you turned into the one thing they never wanted to face, a force they can't stop. And now they have to live with the fact that the person they tried to destroy has become something they will never be: untouchable. Number 4. They tried to control your story. You rewrote it in fire. They laughed at your first chapter, but the ending belongs to you. They tried to write you out of history, but now every page burns with your name. They spoke with such confidence, didn't they? Like they knew how your story would end. They looked you in the eye and declared, "You'll never make it." They smirked as they told you, "You don't have what it takes." Their voices dripped with arrogance, their words heavy with certainty. In their minds, your path had already been written, a short, uneventful tragedy that would end in failure. They thought they had the power to decide your limits, to dictate your destiny, to carve your legacy into stone before you even had the chance to begin. But now their words are ashes, because the same people who swore you would never make it are now scrambling to pretend they never doubted you. The same mouths that mocked you are now twisting the story, desperately trying to rewrite history, to erase their cowardice, to bury their betrayal, to disguise their weakness. But you remember, oh, you remember, they tried to control your story, but you rewrote it in fire. That's what terrifies them. Not just that you succeeded, but that you did it without them, that their words held no power, that their laughter never stopped you, that every time they tried to break you, you used the wreckage as fuel. They thought they could bury you in their doubt. They thought if they filled your path with enough obstacles, enough rejection, enough humiliation, you would give up and prove them right. But what they never understood was this: you were never looking for their permission to exist. You were never waiting for their approval to rise. The greatest names in history all walked this road before you. Michael Jordan was told he wasn't good enough. Walt Disney was fired for lacking imagination. J.K. Rowling was rejected by 12 publishers. Every single one of them was mocked before they were celebrated. Every single one of them had their story ridiculed before the world was forced to acknowledge its power. And you are no different. At this point, you might ask yourself, why? Why do they suddenly act like they always believed in me? Because now your success is undeniable. Because now the truth is too loud to ignore. They see the fire in your eyes. They see the power in your steps. And suddenly they're afraid. Afraid that you'll expose them. Afraid that you'll remind the world how they laughed in your face, how they whispered behind your back, how they did everything in their power to make you believe you were nothing. And now, they panic. They rewrite the script. They say things like, "I always knew you had it in you. I supported you from the beginning. I believed in you the whole time." Lies. They didn't believe in you. They mocked you. They didn't support you. They stood in your way. And now they want to pretend that their betrayal never happened. They want to erase the doubt, the insults, the rejection, as if it was never real. But you remember. You remember the way they spoke to you, the way they looked at you, the way they dismissed your vision like it was worthless. You remember every time they rolled their eyes, every time they ignored your ideas, every time they made you feel like an outsider just for daring to dream. And now they want to sit at your table. Now they want to act like they were always on your side. But you will never forget, because the fire they tried to extinguish in you, it didn't go out. It became an inferno. You owe them nothing, not an explanation, not an apology, not a revision of history that makes them comfortable. They had their chance to stand beside you. They had their chance to believe, and they chose to laugh instead. So let them squirm. Let them fumble for excuses. Let them drown in their regret. Because they don't get to rewrite your story. You do. And every page, every chapter, every word will be written in flames. Number 5. You are no longer human. You are a movement. One person with a vision is dangerous. One person who won't stop. Unstoppable. You were once a name they mocked. Now you are a force they can't ignore. They used to see you as just another person, just another dreamer with ideas too big, just another fool who would eventually break under the weight of reality. They rolled their eyes when you spoke, dismissed your ambition as fantasy, and laughed behind your back, convinced that your fire would eventually burn out. But now, when you walk into a room, the air shifts. Their laughter dies in their throats. Their certainty collapses beneath the weight of your existence. Because you didn't just succeed, you became something they can't explain, something they can't control, something they never saw coming. You are no longer just a person with goals. You are the proof that limits are a lie. You are the embodiment of what they said was impossible, and that terrifies them, because your success is no longer just about you. It's bigger than that now. You are a movement, a force, a reminder to everyone still trapped in mediocrity that they never had an excuse, only fear. And fear is a weak man's god. They don't hate you because of what you've achieved. They hate you because your existence exposes them. Every time they see you rise, every time they hear your name, they are forced to confront the brutal truth. They could have done it too, but they didn't, because unlike you, they chose comfort over courage. They chose doubt over action. And now they are left drowning in the regret of their own inaction. That's why they whisper now. That's why they scramble to rewrite the past. They will pretend they never doubted you. They will act like they always believed in you. But you remember. You remember the smirks, the eye rolls, the dismissive way they spoke your name like it held no weight. And now, that same name echoes in rooms they no longer control. That's the power of being more than human. That's the power of being a force. Look at history. The names that changed the world were never just names. They were movements. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just give speeches. He ignited revolutions. Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer. He was a force that defied every expectation. Elon Musk wasn't just an entrepreneur. He was a walking, breathing defiance of limits. And now, you are walking that same path. People don't look at you the same way anymore. They don't laugh as easily because deep down they know what you represent. They know that if you were right, if you truly made it, then everything they believed in was a lie. That's why they avoid eye contact now. That's why they sit in silence when your name is mentioned. Because acknowledging your success means acknowledging their own failure. And nothing is more painful than realizing the cage you lived in was never locked. At this point, you might ask yourself, why do they still try to deny it? Why don't they just admit they were wrong? Because admitting it would mean facing themselves. And cowards don't face themselves. They run, they hide, they pretend. But you stand in the fire and let it forge you. That's why they can't touch you anymore. That's why they have lost their power over you. Because you are no longer someone who just has a goal. You are a symbol, a force, a movement too big for their small minds to comprehend. And that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. They thought they could erase you. Now you are carved into history. They wanted you to stay small, because as long as you stayed small, they never had to question themselves. But the moment you became undeniable, their world cracked. They will never admit it, but deep down, they know. They lost. Because you didn't just prove them wrong, you proved them irrelevant. And now, there is nothing they can do but watch as you continue to rise, untouchable, unstoppable, and beyond their reach forever. Number 6. You were never supposed to win, but you did. Every rule was built to keep you in a cage, but you broke free, and now they don't know how to stop you. They designed this world to break you. Every system, every rule, every expectation, it was all set up to keep you in your place. They told you to follow the path, to stay small, to obey without question. They raised you in a cage and called it freedom. They made you believe that power belongs to the chosen few, that success is a privilege granted by the gatekeepers. And if you even thought about rising above, if you even dreamed of more, they laughed. They doubted. They reminded you of your place. But you didn't stay in your place. You weren't supposed to think for yourself. You weren't supposed to break the script. You weren't supposed to outgrow the system they built to contain you. But you did. You outgrew their limits, outplayed their expectations, and outlasted their doubt. And now they have no idea what to do with you, because you weren't supposed to win. You weren't supposed to become something they couldn't control. This is why they're struggling, why they whisper, why they act like you don't exist. They see you, but they don't acknowledge you, because acknowledging you means acknowledging that their system is a lie. It means admitting that the very rules they followed their entire lives were never real. You didn't just escape the system, you exposed it. Look around. Who are the ones who tell you to stay small? Who are the ones who mock ambition, who discourage risk, who sneer at anyone trying to break free? It's never the ones who have built empires. It's never the ones who have conquered. No, it's always the ones who gave up before they even started. The ones who surrendered their dreams a long time ago and now hate the sight of someone who refuses to do the same. This is why they attack you. This is why they resist you. Not because you are wrong, but because you prove they were wrong about themselves. History repeats itself. The world laughed at Henry Ford before he revolutionized transportation. The world mocked the Wright brothers before they took flight. They called Elon Musk delusional before his rockets landed themselves. They rejected Oprah before she built an empire. Over and over again, the pattern is the same. The ones who create the future are always the ones the world tries to break first. And you were never supposed to be here. But here you are. At this point, you might ask yourself, why do they care so much? Why do they fight so hard to hold others back? Because people like them, followers, doubters, the small-minded masses, need the illusion of fairness to feel okay with their failures. If the system is fair, then their mediocrity is justified. If only the lucky succeed, then their failure isn't their fault. But then you came along, someone who wasn't supposed to win, who had every reason to stay down but refused. And that shattered their illusion. Because if you, someone they counted out, could break free, then they could have too. But they didn't. And that is the thought that haunts them. That is why they resent you. They spent their whole lives believing that power belonged to the chosen few. But then you chose yourself. Now they scramble. Now they try to rewrite history. They'll say you had advantages, that you had it easier, that you just got lucky. Anything to avoid the truth. That you earned every step of your rise. That while they played it safe, you took risks. That while they settled, you built. That while they laughed at others, you learned. And now, you have won a game they swore you could never play. And they have to live with that. They have to wake up every day knowing that the same system they obeyed like a religion was never real. That the walls they bowed to were never locked. That the limitations they accepted were nothing but illusions. And now you are walking proof of that. You didn't just win. You changed the game. And that is something they will never forgive. Number 7. The same mouths that mocked you now speak your name in respect. At first they ignore you, then they mock you, then they pretend they always believed in you. The same voices that once laughed now whisper your name in fear, because the joke was never on you. It was on them. They swore you would fail. They made it their mission to doubt you, to drag your name through the dirt, to turn your dreams into a punchline. They smirked when you spoke, rolled their eyes when you tried, and laughed like your ambition was a comedy written for their amusement. They didn't just doubt you, they took pride in dismissing you. But now they don't laugh. Now they don't speak. Now they sit in stunned silence because the one they mocked has become the one they fear. You remember their smirks. You remember the way they spoke about you like you were nothing. You remember every time they called you crazy, every time they ridiculed your vision, every time they tried to shrink you down into something small enough for their weak minds to comprehend. And now they pretend it never happened. Now they whisper about you in rooms where they once mocked you. Now they tell stories of how they always knew you had it in you. Now they scramble to rewrite history, hoping you'll forget how they doubted you. Because the truth burns them alive. They thought they were laughing at your failure, but in reality, they were laughing at their own ignorance. The moment you started winning, their tone changed. Now, your name carries weight. Now, your presence makes them uncomfortable. The same mouths that once dismissed you now speak about you in admiration, because they have no choice. Look through history. The pattern never changes. Every great name was once a target of mockery. Michael Jordan was told he wasn't good enough. Now, his name is spoken like legend. Elon Musk was laughed at for his ideas. Now the world waits to see his next move. Oprah Winfrey was fired and told she wasn't fit for television. Now she owns an empire. First, they laugh. Then they watch. Then they follow. But here's the part they don't want to admit. They were never laughing at you. They were laughing at the fact that they never had the courage to do what you did. At this point, you might ask yourself, why do they do this? Why do the same people who mocked me now act like they always supported me? Because weak people do not have conviction. They go where the power is. They shift like the wind, bending to whatever force is strongest. When they thought you were weak, they laughed. Now that they see your strength, they bow. It was never about you. It was always about them. They only respect you now because you forced them to. They never wanted to believe in you, but now they have no choice. That silence you hear now, that's the sound of their regret. That nervous energy when they see you now, that's the weight of their shame. That sudden change in tone, that's fear. Because the same people who threw stones at you are now watching as you build a fortress with every rock they hurled. And the worst part for them, they know you remember. They know you remember the way they mocked you. They know you remember the nights you had to fight through their laughter, the days you had to pretend their words didn't cut deep, the moments you stood alone while they laughed together. And now they are hoping, praying that you have forgotten. But you haven't. And the best part, you don't even need revenge. You don't need to call them out. You don't need to remind them of their own failure, because they feel it every time they hear your name. They feel it every time they see you win. Your existence alone is punishment enough. The ones who laughed at you now pretend they were on your side all along, but deep down they know the truth, and so do you. So let them whisper. Let them rewrite history in their minds. Let them scramble to attach themselves to your success. It changes nothing, because when they were laughing, you were working. When they were doubting, you were building. And when they were mocking, you were proving them wrong. They laughed, thinking they had the final word. But now, you are the one writing the ending. Number 8. They never hated you. They hated themselves for not being you. Their problem was never your success. It was their failure to even try. They don't despise your talent. They don't resent your strength. What haunts them, what keeps them awake at night, is the brutal truth that you did what they were too afraid to even attempt. They never hated you. Not truly. They never even cared about you enough for that. What they really hated, what made their blood boil, what filled them with quiet, choking bitterness, was what you represented. You were proof of everything they could have been but never had the courage to become. It was never about you. It was about them, their fear, their weakness, their endless list of excuses, the way they sold themselves on mediocrity and called it realistic, the way they buried their dreams beneath piles of self-doubt and called it being responsible. And then you came along, and you shattered every lie they told themselves. Because while they were waiting, you were moving. While they were doubting, you were doing. While they were making excuses, you were making progress. And nothing makes a weak person feel more pathetic than watching someone else succeed with the same 24 hours they wasted. And now they live with that regret every single day. You think they don't see it. You think they don't notice. Every time your name comes up, every time they hear about what you've done, it's a dagger straight through their pride. Not because they ever wanted to support you, but because you are living proof that their failure was always a choice. They didn't envy your success. They envied the fact that you had the courage to chase it. Think about it. They had dreams once too. They had visions, ambitions, goals that made their hearts beat faster. But somewhere along the way, they got scared. They convinced themselves it was too late, that it was too risky, that the price of trying was too high. And then you appeared. You, with your audacity to believe in yourself. You, with your refusal to bow to their so-called logic. You, with your relentless pursuit of what they abandoned long ago. And that was too much for them to handle. It's why they fought you so hard. Why they laughed in your face. Why they called you crazy, delusional, reckless. Because if you were right, if you actually succeeded, then it meant they had wasted years living a lie. And the only way they could protect themselves from that reality was to tear you down before you could prove them wrong. They tried everything: mockery, doubt, sabotage. They wanted to see you fail, not because you were undeserving, but because your failure would allow them to stay comfortable. But what they never expected, what they still don't understand, is that every single insult, every single rejection, every single time they tried to break you, it only made you stronger. And now they have to sit in silence and watch you rise. They tell themselves you got lucky. They tell themselves you had an advantage they didn't. They tell themselves any lie they can because the truth is too painful to face. Because deep down, they know the reality they tried so hard to ignore. The only difference between you and them is that you weren't afraid to try. At this point, you might ask yourself, why don't they just admit it? Why don't they just acknowledge that I was right all along? Because admitting it would mean facing their own reflection. It would mean looking in the mirror and realizing that the only thing standing between them and greatness was the cowardice they refused to conquer. They don't want to hate themselves, so they hate you instead. Because it's easier to resent your success than it is to accept their own failure. But their resentment is not your problem. You don't owe them an apology. You don't owe them forgiveness. You don't owe them the comfort of pretending they were ever on your side. Let them talk. Let them make excuses. Let them rewrite history in their heads to protect their fragile pride. None of it matters, because every single morning when they wake up and see the life they settled for, they are reminded of you. Every single day when they go through the motions of a life they never wanted, they are haunted by the ghost of what they could have been. And that is a torment far worse than anything you could ever say to them. Because you didn't just succeed, you became their greatest regret. Number 9. They tried to bury you. Now they tremble when you rise. They tried to make you invisible, but now they can't take their eyes off you. They thought they had silenced you. They thought they had crushed you. But what they didn't realize was you weren't a corpse. You were a seed. And now you have grown beyond their reach. They gathered like vultures when they thought you were finished. They smiled as they pushed you into the dirt, convinced they had buried you for good. They spat on your name, turned their backs, and walked away with the arrogance of those who believe they have won. But what they never understood, what their weak minds failed to grasp, was that the dirt they buried you under was the very thing that would make you unstoppable. You weren't dead. You were only growing. They tried to drown your voice in laughter. They tried to crush your dreams under the weight of their rejection. They tried to erase your presence, rewrite your story, and pretend you never mattered. But now, they can't stop watching you. They hear your name in places they never expected. They see you rising higher than their pathetic minds could ever imagine. They tremble, not just because you made it, but because you were never supposed to. They swore you were finished. Now, you are all they can talk about. You have to understand. Weak people build their entire existence around the idea that others will fail. It is the only way they can justify their own mediocrity. They convince themselves that success is reserved for the privileged, for the lucky, for the chosen few, because if that lie crumbles, they have no excuse for the lives they wasted. And when someone like you comes along, someone who refuses to die, refuses to stay buried, refuses to accept their limits, that's when their fear begins. Look through history. Every great one was buried before they rose. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Then he became the greatest of all time. Oprah Winfrey was told she didn't belong on television. Then she built an empire. Elon Musk was laughed at for trying to build reusable rockets. Now his rockets return to Earth while his doubters eat their words. Do you see the pattern? The world tries to crush the ones who will change it. But the moment you refuse to break, that's when you become dangerous. At this point, you might be asking, why did they do it? Why did they want so badly to see me fail? Because if you failed, they never had to question themselves. If you failed, they could go to sleep at night, believing that dreams really are impossible. But when you rise, now they are forced to face a nightmare, the nightmare that they were never trapped. They just chose to stay small. And that realization, it's killing them. That's why their silence is louder than their words ever were. They don't mock you anymore, do they? The same people who once laughed now avoid your name. The same ones who swore you were nothing now act like they never doubted you at all. Because acknowledging your success means acknowledging their own failure. But here's the part they never saw coming. You don't need their recognition. You don't need their applause. You don't need their validation, because you made it without them. They buried you, thinking they had won. But now, they have to live with the reality that you were never beneath them. You were always above them. And that is why they tremble, because they know, deep in their hearts, that if you can rise after everything they did to stop you, then there is nothing left that can hold you back. You were never the victim. You were always the storm. So let them watch. Let them sit in silence, choking on the truth they tried to bury. Let them pretend they always believed in you, while you keep rising beyond their reach. Because the greatest revenge isn't words. It isn't confrontation. It's becoming everything they swore you could never be. Number 10. The future is yours, and there's nothing they can do to stop you. The throne is no longer empty. The king has arrived. The same ones who swore you'd never make it now watch in terror, because you have taken everything they tried to keep from you. They tried to stop you. Every word, every doubt, every attempt to bury you was a desperate move to keep you from becoming what they feared most. They threw obstacles in your path, hoping you would trip. They locked doors, thinking you would walk away. They whispered behind your back, convincing themselves that if they just ignored you long enough, you would disappear. But now, they can't ignore you. They can't stop you. And worst of all, they can't escape you, because you have risen beyond their reach. No more doubters, no more haters. Their voices have been drowned by the sound of your victory. They swore you would fail. They swore you were wasting your time. They bet against you, laughed at you, and convinced themselves that they would never have to deal with the reality of your success. But now they sit in silence, watching as the very thing they mocked unfolds before their eyes. And here's the part that haunts them the most. They never had power over you to begin with. They thought they could define you. They thought their opinions mattered. They thought they could shape your destiny with their words, their rejection, their disbelief. But what they never understood, what they will never understand, is that a chosen one doesn't ask for permission. A chosen one takes. You took your destiny in your hands and bent it to your will. You didn't wait for the world to open its doors. You kicked them down. You didn't wait for approval. You moved forward as if it was already yours. And now, it is. They will try to downplay it. They will pretend they aren't impressed. They will act as if they never doubted you, as if they always believed in you. But you remember the smirks, the laughter, the way they rolled their eyes when you spoke. And now, that same laughter has turned into silence, because the future belongs to you, and there's nothing they can do about it. Look at history. The same pattern repeats itself every time. The ones who rewrite the world are always the ones they try to destroy first. Michael Jordan was told he wasn't good enough. Now they call him the greatest of all time. Oprah Winfrey was fired and told she wasn't meant for TV. Now she has built an empire. Elon Musk was mocked when he spoke of space travel. Now his rockets are rewriting the future. And you are next. At this point, they are desperate. They scramble for ways to discredit you, to rewrite history, to pretend they were never against you. But the truth is unshakable. They didn't believe in you. They wanted you to fail. They needed you to stay small so they could feel big. But you outgrew them. You broke the mold. You shattered the limits they swore could never be broken. And now, you stand at the top, where they never thought you'd be. They tried to write you out of history. Instead, you became the author. Now, the only thing left to do? Claim everything they swore you could never have. You have rewritten destiny. You have crushed their doubts beneath your feet. And now, as they sit in their regret, watching you take everything they tried to keep from you, they are forced to confront the truth. They were never stopping you. They were stopping themselves. They could have stood beside you. They could have learned from you. They could have believed in you. But they chose to doubt you. And now, that choice is their greatest regret. Because the future is yours. The doors are open. The throne is no longer empty. The king has arrived. If you feel this message, hit like, subscribe, and drop the number 77 in the comments. Let the world know the chosen ones are here, and nothing will ever be the same again.